going to take a video here of the valley and kind of show you people where we live and what we do. And it'll be a kind of a history of John Carlson's life here in the valley. And we also have another brother that will be here Thanksgiving. And we'll take some more video then. And we want to thank you people for writing in English, and God bless you. We're sorry we don't speak your language. Hope we leave enough for you. What we're going to do in this video is show you the valley where John Carlsen lived, and we'll show you the sawmill where he worked, and then we'll take you and show you the houses where us kids were born, my brother, my sister, and I. And then we'll take you out and show you the ranch that John had.
This is the Payette Valley where John came in 1917. We're coming over to the town of Emmett now. And also there is the sawmill where John worked his entire life. He had a farm, and then he also worked. The first few years that he was in Emmett, he lived in town, but later he moved on to the ranch. This is a beautiful valley, diversified. Hills are rolling hills around the valley. I will just pan around the valley and let you get a good idea of what it's like. We have a view of the Squaw Butte, which in my opinion is real special. This is known as the Little Butte. Kids when they were little, Bernard and myself, Maxine, all of us, we'd climb up that Little Butte, but then on up above it is the Squaw Butte. It's a beautiful thing. All the seasons it's different. Then on back another 30 miles or so, the timber starts. But then along the south part of the valley, the slope they call it, the south slope, it's an irrigated valley. You'll see the canal down there. Water is taken from the Payette River and brought around the slope, and then the valley is irrigated. But as we go along here, you'll see a bunch of beer cans. Oops, I'm sorry. Here is the I said it was our new high school. We're going to go on now over to, oh, that is the sawmill. I'm sorry. Now here's the high school. I'll get it straightened out. It's kind of cloudy. I hope this is going to make a good picture. There's our high school. A new high school made out of concrete domes. Incidentally, one of Jack's son, Tom, is a teacher not at that high school, but at a middle school. Also his wife. You'll get to meet them on the Thanksgiving part of it. Now this is where John Carlsen started to work when he came here to Emmett. This mill was new in 1916. In fact, John had the honor of grading the first surface board that come through the plant. Jack and I will go through the mill, I think probably Saturday or Monday, and we'll show you where John worked. And I worked there too. I'm the photographer. I'm Maxine's husband. And I worked all of my working life at Boise Cascade. I'll swing you around and let you see another view of the valley. And then I'm going to head back to town. It's a kind of a raw afternoon. There is a beautiful scene of a butte here, but there's no way of seeing it today. There is one more thing I'd like to show you. Here's some fruit trees right down below us. Over here on to my left, I hope I'm not going too fast. I think I'm talking too fast. These hills are bare hills.
This is Jack Carlsen again. After looking at the tapes from yesterday, there's a few things that I forgot to say. First off, I want to introduce my sister again, Maxine, and she's the eldest, and my brother is the middle one, and I'm the youngest. There's four years apart. And then we'd like to certainly thank Toll for her translation and her cards and letters. And now I'd like to introduce the man that's putting this all together, my brother-in-law, Hallie Hartsfield.
Hi, I hope that I'm in the picture. We're having a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it. This is the Catholic church that John has gone to, John after he married Anna. They have gone to this church for years. John said it was easy to go to the Catholic church instead of the Lutheran, in that their doctrinations and everything is so similar that it wasn't any problem for John at all. And it made it nice for both to go to the same church, both John and Anna. Maxine and I are going to go in the church for just a little bit and show you where all of the kids went to church. Just bear with us just a second. This is what, oh, this is the, press this way. This is the church that, through the years, that the family has gone to. All the services of the departed have been in this church. However, it has just been recently remodeled and is made larger. There's one thing I think, I'm just going to try to see if I can show you. May or may not work. Just bear with me for another second. What didn't work at all, so I'll just pan around the church and we'll be on our way. I'm going to go over and get my hair cut. This is the parking lot for the Sacred Heart Church. The reason I'm showing you this parking lot is that it does have a part in the story of John's life. When John retired from the Boise Cascade, there was an old grade school here. The church bought the grade school and made it into a parochial school, and John was the janitor. Let's say he did it mostly as a donation of his time for the church. However, he did make a little money, but not much. But the wonderful thing for John and the children in the parish was that the love that developed between the students and John, also the parents. This afternoon, Jack and I are going to go down to the sawmill and take some pictures. John lived about just down here to the corner and about a half a block east, back in that way from church. When he retired, he wanted, they were very religious, John and Anna both. He wanted it handy for Anna to go to church. Instead of going to the sawmill this afternoon, a little dark and cloudy, and it might be a little cloudy in the saw, or a little dark in the sawmill, so we have decided to come out and let you see John and Anna's and all the clan's graves this afternoon. On the way around, we're going to take another shot of the valley. We're going to get back in the car and go on around about another. On the bluff at the south end of the cemetery, we're going to turn and go back up to the graves, but I think it would be real nice to show you. First, we'll show you the town of Emmett from another angle, the hills along the south side of the valley, and also it's a very interesting shot of the sawmill. I'll again say we're going to go to the sawmill probably tomorrow.
You can see the cattle down there grazing. And at one time, years ago, this was all swamp. There used to be a big pond where we used to fish over here. I think my brother-in-law, Hallie, and I have went to Shane's Pond and caught some fish over there. Haven't we, Hallie?
You bet we did. You bet we did.
But they have drained it now and have made good farm ground out of it.
And then I'll tell you another thing. There was cattails or tules. I don't know what you call them in Norway, but there was just acres of that.
It was just basically a swamp in here.
I remember one time, well, years before I was married, but we came along there and set that on fire. I'm sure I'd been in jail yet if they'd ever caught me at it.
But this really has changed. They've really improved this ground by drainage.
We're now at the site of John Carlsens and Anna's grave. This is John and Anna's grave. As you can see, John was born 1885, died in 1978. How old was he when he died, Jack?
I think he was 94, Hallie. 93 or 4. According to what I read there, it's 93. But he lived a good long life, worked hard. To me, he was a great man.
His wife Anna was, as you can see, born in 1898 and died in 1986.
So mother was 88 when she passed away. Dad was quite a little older than mother. I think Dad was 33 years old before he married. But they lived a good long life, which we were sure happy for.
This particular area here, there is, all the clan is together. In fact, Maxine and I are real lucky. We have got this site right here for our graves. This is the home where Maxine and Bernard was born. This is the first place that John and Anna lived. They moved here in 1919. Actually, all of these houses was built by the Boise Cascade Lumber Company and rented to the employees.
This is where basically all the lumber people and their families built. Dad came here in 1917, and when he first came here, he lived in a boarding house down by the sawmill, but it is tore down now. And when Mother and Dad was married in 1918, this is their first home, and this is where my sister and brother were born.
This actually is, I got to talking about it, and we remembered that they had taken those and cut each one in half and brought them uptown. There used to be the other half of this here, but it was torn down to be used for area for a service station. But all of the men that came in, that worked at the mill, that didn't have wives, stayed and had their lodging and room in one of these buildings. While at the sawmill, we finally got there. And this is the area where John graded. The building is still here, but it's all changed from what it was. But we're going to...
And Hallie, while we're here, I'd like to say something about my dad. He just wasn't one of the graders. He was the top grader here for years. And he was the top grader. And he was the top grader, particularly in probably in the industry in the whole Northwest. In fact, he had a chance to become a grader and go from male to male checking on grade. And he turned it down because he said it would take too much time away from his family.
And there is the cyclone where of course you in Norway know all about cyclones and planers and whatnot. But we're going to go up there in the area. And incidentally, Jack, John's son, which was just talking then, he was a shop grader for years. We're in the dress shed now, and we're actually in the area where John and Jack used to work. And we came along to these loads of shop. And John was a shop grader along with his select and common lumber grader. But to me, I was amazed that he was just almost like a dancer. They'd have a long, what do they call that thing that they had, Jack?
Well, it had a scale stick.
Scale stick.
With a hook on the end, and you turned the boards over so you could see both sides.
You turned it over with that hook, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, I know he looked, just kind of reminded me like he was doing a dance or something. It was real interesting.
Dad was quick as a cat. He was very much respected for his work down here at the mill.
I agree with you 100%. I don't know whether you can see back in there or not, but that is more or less the area in the center of this building where John did his select grading, select and shop. And I think I'll just pan over here. I think you might find this just a little interesting. You got anything more to say about your dad?
Well, all I can say that he graded select when I started.
Lift trucks. They put their tongs in under the loads and pack them around and lift them and stack them out. I don't know how many high they can stack them.
It has changed so much. When I was working down here, well, everything was brought in with horses on a rail. Now they motorize it where everything is brought in by.
That's absolutely right. In fact, the sawmill, as it was per se in 1916, it just couldn't compete. In fact, the new sawmill and equipment we got from the Norwegian and Swedish countries. Cut through the shed, and we just came to these small piles of lumber, and I just thought it was kind of neat. I hope there isn't too much light in here, but I hope we can get a little, I hope it's pretty good.
We're at the car line now. Now, like this particular car here, that's where a car like that what we graded shop into. You had two men working for you, one inside and one out, and you graded the lumber and tallied it on a tally sheet. And that's the way it was done for years and years. But now we can look over this way and we can see how things have modernized. Everything is done with heisters and lifts now. Not much handwork left.
We happened to notice this big sawed-off piece of log down here. How many feet across is that, Jack?
Well,
you want to walk up and kind of give me an idea of the height?
7 feet 9 inches, it says.
You want to walk up there, Jack? Please?
7 feet 9 inches in diameter, and the height was 126 inches, and it was 306.
Finally, we're recording again. I'm going to walk up close and see if... I don't know whether you'll be able to see this or not, but what is the oldest...
I can tell you, Hallie, this is U.S. history. Number one is 1620. The Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. 1644, the English renamed New York. 1682, William Penn established Pennsylvania. 1718, New Orleans is founded. 1754, French and Indian War.
1776, Declaration of Independence. 1814, the Treaty of Giant. 1836, the Battle of the Alamo. 1867, Alaska was purchased. 1893, Kingdom of Hawaii annexed. 1917, U.S. enters World War I. 1941, U.S. enters World War II. 1976, U.S. bicentennial.
Now I'm going to pan across there, Jack, and pick out those. Oh, here they are up here. This is the number that he was reading. Isn't that right, Jack?
Yes, yes.
I'll just take that to center, and it'll give you an idea that's a real old tree.
Well, it was 376 years old.
We're now at the place. Yesterday we were down there in Milltown. This is the second home that John lived in. And in this place, he moved here in probably in 1923, bringing Maxine and Bernard. And Jack was born here in this place.
Yeah, this is the place where I was born. I can't really remember the place too much, but this was the second home of the folks, and they lived here probably until about 1928 when they went to the farm. It has changed some since I think they've remodeled a little bit, but it's pretty basically the same.
Now going out to the ranch that John bought after he lived the place that we were just at. In fact, we're going right now. We're going by the sawmill where we were. We're going to turn here, and then we're heading south. About a half a mile, and another half a mile west, and we'll be at the home ranch then. I'll just let the camera run until we make this turn.
This is the home ranch that the folks bought in 1928, and we moved out here. Originally there was a big two-story house here, and it seemed like our luck really turned bad. I can remember Maxine and my brother Bernard was in school, and Dad and I was out in the barn, and Mother was down at the neighbors visiting, and we looked out, and the whole house was aflame, and it burned clear to the ground. So we was kind of destitute at the time, but Dad had built a woodshed in back, and we lived in that woodshed until the Depression came, and then the sawmill shut down. But Boise Cascade had another mill in Barber, about 40 miles from here. And Dad was a top grader, so he got a job over there, and we moved to Barber.
Okay.
But we moved to Barber, and we lived there 2 years. And during that time, Dad would come home on weekends and bring lumber with him. And by 1935, when we moved back, why the new house was basically done, so we moved in the new house. And then everything seemed to turn around, and things were kind of good for us. But this is my mother and Dad always had all the holiday dinners, and all the family congregated here. But I would like to tell you that when Dad lived here, he was such a neat person. The place was a lot neater than it looks now.
And I can remember this place. I courted Maxine when they lived here, and I can remember that John and Anna had quite a social life. They would. Oh, another thing. Well, I'll finish that first. They would go out in the evenings and play cards with people around town, and played a lot of bridge.
And I can remember, Hallie, that when I was a kid, they used to have a lot of house parties. They had a little. Dad played the accordion, and Vic Larson, he played the mouth organ, and they had a little party quite occasionally on weekends, and danced, and they just had a good time, really.
That was really nice.
And they always had a bunch of milk cows. And when John would come home from the mill, John and Anna would go out and milk the cows. And then in the morning, I swear they got up at 4 o'clock every morning, every day they had to, and went out and milked the cows. They sold the milk to make for cream.
Yeah, what we did, we milked the cows, and then we'd separate the milk from the cream and take the cream into town and sell it to the creamery, and feed the skim milk to we always had some hogs. We always fed the skim milk to hogs. And Mother always had a couple hundred laying hens, and we just had a busy time out here, basically. But Dad was such a hard worker. He kept this place up and worked at the sawmill both.
I'll bring up just one more thought, that all of his animals, his cows and everything was gentle. They weren't afraid of him. I think I'll just cut it off here, Jack. I didn't mention, or didn't have an opportunity from what I took of the barn and the house to show you the land. I think Jack mentioned there was originally, what was it, 30 or 40 acres?
There was 40 acres here originally. But what I might mention here, what little piece of ground we're looking at here was an orchard when we moved here. All this great orchard. And the story goes that Dad decided he didn't want that orchard, and one Saturday he chopped down every one of those trees, just one Saturday.
Maxine has told me the same story.
He was
a hard worker. And another thing, talking about his working, he was a very strong man. His arms and hands were big. And incidentally, when he came from Baker, Oregon here, and he was a boxer down there. And he loved boxing all his life. He'd watched boxing on television.
Yes, Dad was quite a man. He was a man's man. He was just a strong man, but still he was a gentleman.
This is the home that John and Anna moved into after John retired. Maybe you'd like to talk about this, Jack.
This home is just a short ways away from the church. That was one of the reasons that Dad moved into town. He's starting to get a little elderly, and he didn't want to leave Mother alone out in the country, so they moved in.
We got another view of the home here, and sorry, but I cut Jack off. I think he was just saying that he moved into town for what, Jack?
Well, he moved into town so something happened to him while Mother would be close to the grocery store, close to church, and she could walk to those places.
They lived here for 20 years or more, and they had a lot of Christmas dinners. We'd come over here, all the family would get together on Christmas morning, and we'd eat a big breakfast, and then we'd play poker all day, and just had a grand time.
Yeah, and drink a little wine.
No.
We had some good times here.
Let's face it, John liked his schnapps. In fact, I kind of think all Scandinavian people like to have a few drinks. I think it's a hell of a good idea myself. I don't drink now because I can't. I had heart surgery.
But we had some wonderful times here. Mother was always had people in. There never was hardly a dull moment in their life. They played a lot of bridge and cards, and when we got together on holidays and even on Sundays, we always played poker. Dad loved to play poker.
I've talked so much about Hammett, been on all sides of it. I thought I'd just take a minute and come up and show you the town where John and Anna have raised their kids. It's a nice place to raise kids. Population of probably 4,500. This is the older part of the town. Well, this is about all of it. What you see is what you get. I'm going to pan around up here to the railroad depot. There's the depot. And the railroad came in here in 1906. I'm going to go up there and take some shots. This is a depot. It's not used for a passenger depot anymore. And incidentally, John came to the United States in 1901. And he started his logging career in Wisconsin and then on over to Minnesota. I spent about 5 or 6 years in the woods as a timber cutter. It was a very hard life. And in about 5 years, he went back to Norway. He stayed but just a short time, and then he came on back to Potlatch, Idaho. That's in northern Idaho, and there he started his grading career. Later he went on to Seattle. There's the sawmill down there. Later he went on to Seattle, and then he worked his way through Bend, Oregon, to Baker City, Oregon, and then finally to Emmett in 1916. See where the sawmill is down there. But one thing I think is interesting is that there is a network of canals, a walkover. Canals takes water from the Payette River and irrigates the land in the valley. The valley was settled in about anywhere from 1860 through the late 1800s. And most of the settlers came in here and settled on homesteads of 360 acres. I was saying about this canal, the valley is covered with a network of canals, and all of it is irrigated and is a very fertile valley, and actually it's called the Valley of Plenty. This is the home of Jack Carlsen. I don't know how many acres of land he has here. I want to just, this driveway is so pretty. I'm going to pan his property. He has this property on this side of the house. And he also owns this field. He bought this property after he built the house to prevent development so that he could have the privacy in his place. It's beautiful in the summer with the shade of the trees along the ditch. I see an old antique wheel. This is a view of the backside of their house, and you can see the land they have. Jack raises cattle. That is all pasture. And he always has a nice garden. There are hunting dogs there. There's a lot of pheasants, and possibly we might even see a pheasant. I have just came back from Jack Carlsen's place, and we're now getting a view of the home where Maxine and I have lived since 1939. Incidentally, I reviewed the tape that I made up at the depot last night, and I discovered that I didn't note in there that John Carlsen was only 16 years old when he came to the country here the first time. 16 years old. You Carlsens must be tough, just as he is. We're coming through the gate in the fence, my privacy fence. I'll walk on back and show you a bit more of the place. It doesn't look too nice out here on the patio. However, when I have hanging plants and everything is green, it is beautiful out here. I don't mean to brag, but just stating the fact. I guess I'll just take a shot of the garage, and then on beyond that is the shed which I keep my riding lawnmower. I can mow my lawn in about 40 or 50 minutes. What I'm showing you along here, there is raspberries, and then come up along here is grapes, which we make into juice. Two mature or larger walnut trees in back, and then more right here, larger tree right here. Those three trees produce a couple or 3 bushels of walnuts every year. It does that about every 2 or 3 years. Some boysenberries that we planted a couple of years ago. We should be getting some berries off from them this year. Right here, and then the one on over is a hazelnut. So I built this little wagon to pull behind my lawnmower. I have a lot of fun with it, and so does my grandsons. This shot shows the south side of my house, and then on back to the entrance on my garage. Thanksgiving. But in 1620, the Pilgrims came from Plymouth, England, and settled in Plymouth, Massachusetts. They landed there, and they spent the first winter there. In fact, about 30% of them died that first winter. But by the next fall, with the Indians' help, they survived, and they had a big feast and celebrated. And ever since then, we celebrate it. That's where it started. But we celebrate it because it's a day to be thankful. Finally, Bernard and Teresa are here. They arrived last night, and they are from Carson City, Nevada. And Bernard is the oldest son of John, but I'll just let you, he's going to tell you about his children and his work and the work of his children, and I'll just turn it over to him. Barney, you ready?
Ready. My name is Bernard Carlsen. This is my wife, Teresa. And I have 3 sons and a daughter. My oldest son is with him up in Nevada. He's a manager for a liquor store and also has a cookie out. He has 2 daughters. And they're very lovely daughters. They're very happy with him up there. My second boy is David Carlsen. He's a plumber in Carson City, Nevada. He has 3 daughters and a wife by the name of Jody. And they're very happy in Carson City. My third one is my daughter, Barbara Sweeland, excuse me. She lives in Hawaii. She's an administrator for the hospital. And her husband's a football coach there, and they have 2 daughters. And my last but not least is Johnny Carlsen. He's a liquor salesman in Reno, Nevada. His wife's name is Shelley. He has 1 daughter and 1 son. And by the way, it's my only grandson.
He's not spoiled, is he, Barney?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're sure happy that you're here, and
I think it's about time, Barney, I think it's about time for you to tell maybe some stories about some fun things that happened with your dad. Now, I remember one thing when you was about 16, 15, when your dad bought you a pump shotgun, and you were so excited about it. You want to tell us how you felt and what you did there? On there that your dad bought you a gun, and tell us that story again about us going down the railroad track.
Well, Harley and I went down the railroad track after I got my new gun. It was out of season, and we killed a bunch of pheasants. We sure had a lot of fun.
You know, Barney, if we'd have been caught, we'd have been in jail yet. But God, I'll never forget that afternoon.
Yeah.
Lots of young pheasants, just like boom, 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 all over. Pheasants falling all over. Okay, now let's get on to some other story. Would you like to tell us about? Oh yeah, you guys came over here every Christmas for years and years to be here for those special Christmas at John's house there in town. Well, even before he moved in town, how many years did you guys come over there? Must have been 20, let's see. Barbara was just a baby the first time you came, wasn't it?
Well, I suppose it was over 35 years that we come on trips to Carson City. Lots of rain, lots of snow.
We always worried about them when they went home. It was always bad weather.
Yes, it seemed to be in them days it was always bad weather. But we made it, and we enjoyed it very much.
Have you got anything to say about the Saturday night parties that John used to have? Victor over there and
Oh, yes.
a little drink or
We
two?
would go uptown on Saturday night, and they'd meet some friends, and they'd come to the house and have a party. Victor played the harp, my dad played the accordion. They had quite a party. Lots of good whiskey.
You know, Jack the other day mentioned those parties, and he said they had a little bit of wine. Now, you're being honest.
Well, they had both.
Now, is there anything more that you want to say, or do you think you pretty much covered it?
No, we just enjoyed our parties with our folks because they were pretty special to us.
I know there's a lot more things that you could tell about your dad. Your dad was awful good to you.
Yes, he was.
He was awful good to you. Then there was the times where they used to tell us about when they used to go down to Reno.
Well, my mother and dad really loved to gamble, play slot machines. They'd come down and see us and stay a week, and we really had a good time.
And they not only did they go down there and play slot machines, but then every evening they'd play poker at the house for nickels and pennies.
Never forget them penny ante poker games. They were a lot of fun. Yes.
Bernard has told us all about his family and what he's done, and I think it's about time for you to, I know you've told us all about your dad and helped a lot in this. In fact, it's your party just as much as mine. Would you tell us about your family and how many kids you got and what they're doing? Whatever.
Okay, Allie, thanks. This is my wife, Clarice, and I have 3 children. My daughter, Melinda, is the oldest, and she has 3 boys, and she works down with me down at the feed store. Then I have a middle son. My son is the middle one, and his name is Tom, and he has a son and a daughter, and works in the school system. He's a principal at the middle school. And my youngest daughter, Ann, she's going to college, and she's a senior in college, and she hopes to be a teacher. That's my family. But one thing I would like to say while we're here, I'm sure glad that John Carlsen came over from Norway. I don't know where we'd be without him.
Jack, I think you can just elaborate a little bit on your kids, a little bit. Now, Tom, did you say that how long he taught, and that he was a superintendent now or principal?
Yeah, he's a principal at the middle school. He's been teaching almost 20 years now. He was a basketball coach for several years, but now he's in administration.
How many kids has he got?
He has 2. He has a son and a daughter.
What's the son's name?
The son's name is John.
John, another John.
It seems like everybody in this family's got a John, so
I think everybody's thought highly of John Carlson.
And let's see, Melinda. Now she is taking a course in real estate, and she's
Yes. She hopes to. She took her test here about a week ago, and she hopes to get her pass her test, and she'll be selling real estate as a part-time along with her work down at the store.
in fact, she's a real asset down at the store. There's a lot of people who really like her.
Yes, in fact, she practically runs it now. She just kind of takes over now.
I'm glad you said that, because in my opinion, she's the one to take that store over. That's one thing I've got to do, is run uptown before we end this thing, not today, but sometime, and show you that store.
Yes, I hope you do, Hallie, so they can get kind of an idea. It's just a little farm store, and it's been there in the Emmett here since 1927.
Well, Jack, I think you're just being just a little shy there, because it's the only feed store per se with the grinders and everything, the grain grinders, and as the community would be lost without it.
Well, yes, we have a complete plant. We process feed and we sell feed, and it's a complete feed mill.
And how long has that been in business?
Well, since 1927.
You and Clarice took it over a good many years ago, didn't you?
Yes, I've been there since 1954. And then Clarice, she's been helping me for the last probably 15 years.
She has done most of the book work, is that right?
She is the bookkeeper, yes.
Now, is there anything else that you guys are missing on your...
Well, I think we've covered everything pretty well, Hallie. So I think probably we've just about covered everything of our life here.
Okay, well, we'll just close it for talking to these kids.
Now, you've heard us talk. I told you about my family, and my brother Bernard told you about his family. Now we're here with Hallie and Maxine, and maybe, Hallie, you could give us a rundown on your family.
Well, Maxine, my wife, and we have 4 children, and we've lived here in Emmett since about 1938. I started out my work at the Boise Cascades. John, bless his heart, got me my first job down at the mill, and he got me a job working in the shed down there among the graders. I carried boards and stacked them up.
Yes, Hallie, and then you got a job over in the warehouse, didn't you?
That's right. Also, John got me that job over at the warehouse, and in a few years of work there, I developed into the manager of the warehouse.
Yes, and that was quite a responsibility, wasn't it, Hallie? What did you do, order the parts and keep inventory?
We ordered them, and then we had a system where we kept track and inventory of what went out, and we just ordered everything that the plant used in emergencies. You'd have to go.
And then from there, Hallie, you kind of went into administration, or did you work in the office, or what?
In 1963, I went into administration. I worked in the office. I had cost control, and also got into safety.
Didn't you travel from around the mills on that job?
That's very interesting work. And when you would have an accident rate of maybe 6 or 7, whatever the rate would be, and through your inspections and the work you did with these plants and see it drop down to hardly nothing, very satisfying.
Yes, you kind of got up at the big boy there, didn't you?
Well, I guess so.
But anyway, Hallie, when you were still doing that job when you retired, right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Now maybe you could give us a rundown on your children.
Well, Larry is a barber here in Emmett. He's been a barber for about 30 years. He's also on the city council for 10 or 12 years. But now he's dropping his council work and he's building a log house up in the mountains. And they're really mountains, like almost you'd have in Norway, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of up in the primitive area almost, isn't it?
It is. You're lots of elk, bears. It's
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's real pretty up there. Now you talk about who's your next, Jim?
And my next son is Jim. He's in teaching, and he's working to get into administration in the teaching. Actually, he was in teaching, and then he went back to Alabama and got a master's degree in accounting. And then he has been in and does that job in Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada as a counselor. And then a few years ago he decided to get into administration, and he's now taking college, in fact, a 4-year course in administration, and he should be through this year.
In fact, didn't he work here in the school district in Emmett for a while?
Right, he did.
Yeah.
He had 3 kids, adopted 3 boys, 3 boys, and adopted a little Indian girl. Of course, she has grown up and has given me a little papoose grandchild.
Well, let's see, Hallie. Now that would be a great grandchild, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So you're a great grandpa and great grandma there.
Yeah, right.
Now,
I've got 2 more.
Yeah, you got John now.
John, he is in advertising in Boise, about 40 miles away, and he enjoys his work, real happy, and he especially enjoys doing commercials for TV. In fact, at the end of the tape, I'm going to tape you one. I'm going to put it on the end of the tape.
And then he still works in the theater some, doesn't he, Hallie?
He's a projectionist several days a week. And then he did have a period where he was real active in the union for projectionists, and he did a lot of good for the projectionists in the Boise Valley. And he likes to gamble. I think they get that from the Carlsens. I'm not sure.
Oh, Carlsens don't like to gamble, Hallie.
But at any rate, a couple of years ago, he was down to Jackpot. That's a little casino town just across the border from Idaho into Nevada, and he won $10,000.
Yes, and he's going to keep it. I tried to borrow some from him, but he turned me down.
You know, you'd be surprised how many friends that he got after he did that. In fact, my daughter-in-law, she says to my son John, she says, "You are my favorite brother-in-law."
That money makes you favorite, huh?
It's nice that he's like it. That pretty well covers. Oh,
No, you got Angela there.
Yeah, I'm just going to say one more thing about John. He has a daughter, Jackie, and she's working to get in the Boise State University to get, I don't know whether you call it a degree or not, in drafting. And then I have one more child, Angela. She is in Lewiston, and she has a son who is a student in Kansas State, and a son, Jason, who is, no, I'm sorry, I screwed up there. I'll start that over. She has a daughter, Lisa, who is a graduate from the University of Oregon, and she is working in Eugene as an accountant, and she has a son. I'll get back to Jason again. She has a son, Jason, that is in Kansas City State, and he got his degree in, or he's working for, I don't know what degree he's working for, but he got a scholarship.
Wasn't he kind of a track star, Hallie?
Right, he was a track star, and he got a scholarship in track.
Yeah, in fact, I think he was one of the best high jumpers in the state of Idaho when he was in high school, wasn't he?
One time, yes, he was. Now, is there anything else?
Well, Hallie, what does Angela's husband do?
Oh, he's a manager of, I think, the First Interstate Bank in Lewiston.
And Angela, she's teaching school?
She's teaching school, yeah, in Washington.
Well, thank you, Hallie.
So been fun. If I don't talk to you guys anymore, God bless you, and I tell you something for sure. We talked it all over last night, and we all said, tell those people in Norway to come over and see us in Idaho. You're all welcome.
This is a shot of Jack and Teresa Theodore. Come around and back and take some of the grain grinding equipment. They just popped in the store to see. They had a devastating fire in their grain mill here about 10 years ago. And I just popped in to see how long ago it was. And Jack's daughter Melinda is here, so I'm taking a picture of her. Want to say hi to the people in Norway?
Hello.
Thank you. As long as I'm in here, I just as well pan around in the store a little bit. About 10 years ago, there was a devastating fire back at the plant. All of the equipment was destroyed, but it's rebuilt and back in operation. While I'm talking about it, that wasn't the only bad time they had. About 20 years ago or more, the Payette River flooded, and across the river there was, I don't know, maybe 100 acres that belonged to the Farmers Feed and Seed, and there was a lot of cattle and hogs there. The flood came down and washed. I wouldn't know how much loss there was, but I remember being down the river, the swollen river, and seeing these hogs walking out there on the islands. Devastating thing. So much about the Payette River. That's up there just a block and a half. I'm just going to hop in the car. Is the Payette River, the one I've talked so much about, getting the water for the irrigate. Also, there is two. This is a picture of John's mother and dad. I imagine you have the same picture over there. Now we're going over to the first picture that we have of John. I imagine it was taken here in the States. And this next picture is more or less a formal picture of John. And then we come over here to John and Anna's wedding picture. And then we drop down to John, Anna, and Maxine. And then we go over here to a real neat little picture that was taken down at the first place that we showed you of Maxine and Anna. And then, oh yeah, here it is. Here is Maxine, Jack, and Bernard. And then here's one that we have found out about the lives of the other two boys, and I've even said what I did. But now it's time, I think, that we talk a little bit about the oldest daughter, Maxine. And as her husband, I can say that she has been a wonderful mother, very strong. She's been a good cook. She's canned lots of vegetables. She's worked very hard. She's been very active in the church. Been president of the Alder Society, and has taught CD, which is kids' religion at the church. And now I'm going to talk just a little bit about what she's done outside of the church. She was very active, both she and I, active in square dancing for about 30 years. As callers. Maxine was one of the top callers in the area. And also she had a round dance club for about 20 years and taught, and every 2 weeks we'd go down to this round dance club. She had got a lot of happiness out of the club and made a lot of people happy. In John and Anna's declining years, Maxine spent hours and hours caring for them and doing for them, helping them in every way she could. And I think that just about, I could talk a long time about what she's done, but I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, and Maxine, I'm sure you want to do the same. How about a big Merry Christmas from you, Maxine?
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Maxine. And that is going to end our tape, and we hope you enjoy it. God bless. I said that was the end of it, but I happened to see a couple of pictures here of one of Maxine. Well, it was taken a few years ago. And then another one of John and Anna. Just know when this picture was taken, but I think it's a real nice one. And I have one more thing that I want to say before I close, is that I'm going to put that commercial on, a TV commercial on, that my son John made. And incidentally, he is the actor in the commercial.
A husband and wife have a tendency to, well, should we say, disagree a bit? Cash and Carry Carpet can't guarantee total spousal harmony, but they can guarantee a huge selection during their new expansion sale. 4 times the selection of carpet, ceramic tile, vinyls, and wallpaper. The expansion sale at Cash and Carry Carpet, just west of Curtis on Franklin, the floor covering experts and part-time marriage counselors.